said he's just a friend.
Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new edition of Getting Color right here on the BigVitoBrand.com. And I am Virtue, being joined by the man himself, of course, Big Vito LaGrasso. Man, we are back doing this thing. What's up, man?
How's everybody? I just wanted to put a shout out and an apology out there for some things that have been missing, and that's Getting Color, Men in Business, the Russo brand. We just had some family issues going on, and sometimes you just need to take a break. And unexpected things happen in life, and I apologize to anybody who's missing the show. But like I always said, for the past 4 years I've been doing this. My wife's health and well-being comes first. We're dealing with some issues. Thank you for all your support. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you to all my friends out there who are there when I need to vent and talk and just to shoot it out there. I greatly appreciate your support. We're back on the hinge right now, so Mr. Virtue, you have some great pictures going on Facebook. Let's take it away and go right to business.
All right, well, let's talk about AEW first, and then we'll get to the WWE stuff.
Okay.
But I want to know your thoughts on a couple of these things. First, we'll talk about Eddie Kingston. He never, as far as I know, he never worked for WWE. I think he had a tryout match for NXT. They never signed him. You know who Eddie Kingston is, right, in AEW? So when Dynamite went off the air a couple weeks ago, he cut a promo, and I don't think he directly said WWE, but he said the other company. And he did what, people like him do. He basically berated them as a company. And I know back in the Attitude Era, when you were number one, you never acknowledged your competition. You just kept rolling. Maybe if you were the second tier down show, you attacked the other show to try to get a buzz. What do you think here when any wrestlers do this? Is it justified today like maybe it was 20-plus years ago? Is Eddie Kingston's known to say what's on his mind? And, he's just feeding that AEW fan base because there were fans in attendance when he cut that promo. But he knew it went online, right? It was off of Dynamite, but it still went online. And I think that was his intent. But what's your thoughts on something like that?
All right, guys, I'm going to give you the skinny on this, okay? I have nothing against AEW or WWE or Eddie Kingston, okay? And when you talk about 20 years ago, when it was the WWE, WCW, the rivalry, ECW creeping in the back door and doing their thing, and stars switching companies because of money issues and promoters taking a big chunk of the money. And, the biggest one who used to have the biggest say was Bret Hart when he went over to WCW because he got the screw job.
Yep.
Right? So that's one. Kevin Nash when he made that great promo about the boys taking charge. And if anybody remembers and listened to it, stick up for yourself. The blood-sucking promoters, they take everything. You got to fight for your money because we're going to get nothing. Scott Hall. These are the guys who, made their way and gave us the avenue to have this kind of conversation. Now, I am lucky enough to have wrestled and worked for the last of the territories, the last of all the big companies, okay? And the one thing I could say being on air is I never acknowledged them, and I never said anything derogatory like, yeah, you guys suck, you can do this, you can do that. If you never worked for a company, how do you know how it is? If the company didn't give you a sniff, or you weren't good enough, or they didn't find you a quality enough talent, why would you put yourself in a position to criticize these people and you say you're going to burn a bridge? Well, if you never worked for them, how are you burning a bridge? Obviously, there hasn't been any interest in 20 years that you've been wrestling. And this is nothing against Eddie Kingston. Please, if you're watching this, this is just my observation. And this is nothing against you, okay? So Bully Ray came up and he said Eddie Kingston does the best promos. He's one of the best promo guys. He should stick to what he does. But when it comes to wrestling and working for companies, only one company gave you the opportunity to shine in 20 years. And in Bully Ray's words, he said, "You're an indie." So
Yep.
be it, right? So when you look at the overall thing, the guy came out, he cut this promo. Now, if it was Sting who said it, because the WWE made him look like a schlep after a wonderful career, and he's trying to leave his legacy on a positive note, I could see him coming out, but he never does.
Yeah.
Taz, made a sloppy ship thing. Okay. He's got credibility to say so because he worked for them.
Yeah.
He did great things for them. Okay. You have Arn Anderson there. You have Jake the Snake there. You have Tully Blanchard there. You got Cody Rhodes. You got Jericho. You got this one. You got that one. You got the other. Got a lot of ex guys. They say things indirectly, but nothing to where they were direct, like it was a direct hit, like Battleship. And he was taking a shot at them. Now Cody with the throne, and he was mocking people. How you doing, Crapitification, Falcone? How's everything? When you talk about this kind of stuff, those guys have the avenue to say something. Now, Cody Rhodes doing the throne and all that,
Yeah.
he didn't need to do that because Cody Rhodes actually had 6 chances to prove himself at the WWE level, and he didn't do it. So when I look at that and he comes out against them, I say, hey, better to just promote yourself, keep to your own brand, do your own thing, instead of bringing up the competition. Chris Jericho, who is probably in the top 20, I'm gonna say he's in the top 25 wrestlers of all time. That's a fair assumption, right?
Yeah.
So if he's in the top 25 and he's not saying blah, 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 A, B, C, D, F, G, and he's just going about his thing, people criticize his bump. People criticize this. People criticize that. Everybody's going to freaking criticize everything. Do you know what I mean? But Chris Jericho's there. He says, listen, I'm making a paycheck. The guys are doing what they're doing. Whatever. The Young Bucks, right? They haven't got a shot in the WWE, or they didn't want to take one. That's their opinion. They don't say anything. Kenny Omega, right? Everybody takes a shot at Kenny Omega. And my big thing with him was when he finally won that world title at AEW, right? Everybody jumped on his bandwagon and everybody was on with him. He went in as a group to be champion. But it took away from the nostalgia of him climbing from the getting released to being a champion in Japan to being a champion for a major company. And that was what my beef with him was, because he didn't take the shine and he didn't ride with it. And he didn't come out in the suit and he didn't present himself as the world champion. He had this one here. And then next week he had this one here. And then he has someone behind him. And everybody jumped around him instead of him shining. That was what my beef was with him. He could have said a bunch of things. He didn't.
Yeah.
Right? And he had a reason to, because they told him, you suck. We're not, take a hike. Guys, when you take a direct hit, you have to be somebody who has credibility, who's been in the business for a while, somebody that people are going to look at and say, well, he does have some, a legit beef with them. I mean, he could say this. But if you're not seeing Sting do it, and you don't see Arn Anderson do it, and you don't see Jake the Snake do it, or DDP do it, or any of the top guys who we've come to respect and love in the business, then why would a guy who just got to that platform take his platform and share it with another company? That's my take on it. Bully Ray is very, very straightforward and calls you out. And he says, what's good is good, as bad is bad. Same thing we do here. But I'm trying to be very delicate about it because I'm trying to be diplomatic. And that's what we do. We're being diplomatic. We're not burying nobody. Hey, it's cool that he speaks his mind. It's cool that people listen. There's a time and a place to do it. Maybe that wasn't the time and place to do it.
Yep. Well said. Now, speaking of things that happen on AEW TV, this has happened twice now, and I just need to know what you think from your perspective. So, several months ago, Jim Ross called Kenny Omega the WWE champion on AEW television. And just this past week, at the end, he said, be sure to tune in next week or whenever it was for WWE Dynamite. JR worked for WWE and told a lot of stories as their announcer. What's your take on this? He's a legend. But
I'm laughing. Listen, guys, the guy
apologize too, by the way.
It's an innocent thing. And when you're in the rush and you have the adrenaline going, I'm not speaking for him. It's just my take.
Yep.
When you've been working for a company for 20 years, you're so used to saying WWE superstar, WWE superstar. Mm-hmm. And you change companies on the fly and you're working there and you still see the WWE superstars in front of you. Hey, it's an easy mistake. Jim Ross, hey, we're not burying you. It was it was a high. You apologize. Give the guy a pass. Jesus Christ. He's 70 years old. Is he about 70? He's in his 60s at least.
I think he's 69 or 70, yeah.
Right. So what are you going to do? You're going to bury the guy for the rest of his life because he said WWE Dynamite? Give the guy a pass.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree.
It was a funny thing. Hey, did he get fired over it? No. If it was in the WWE, there might have been a fine, might have got scolded, might have got yelled at. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but shit happens. And from what I heard through sources that, just happened to talk to me, they say that the young guys back there don't want to listen to the veterans who've been there, done that, because they think it's like passe. But guys, if it wasn't for the veterans to teach you back in the day and show you the way, you wouldn't be at this level or this platform. And I am the first guy to say I am thankful for every vet, all the big names in the business who took the time, and there were plenty of them, to take the time to teach me. That's how I became the wrestler I was and the storyteller I was and the quality performer that I was. That's what you're talking about. And when you take away that experience and you don't want to hear it because you know everything, because you're watching these tapes, you're watching tapes and flips and flops of guys who haven't main evented or been there, and you talk about guys who are just getting there. And this is no disrespect to them, but guys, where do you think you get your experience from? You don't get your experience from wrestling guys at your own level. You get your experience from guys who wrestle here, and you climb to that level to be equivalent to here. My take.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Vito. You got to give him a pass, and he's still a legend. And there's people that get just butt hurt and stuff. Oh, fire him! And he's made. He couldn't even say Japanese wrestlers' names right when he was in New Japan. It's Jim Ross. He's a legend. Now here's some news for you, Vito. Zelina Vega's back in WWE.
Yes.
Okay. Interestingly enough, right? She worked there. They released her. Remember, there was that issue about Twitch and her likeness, and they wanted a cut of it. Right. And Aleister Black, her husband, was getting pushed on SmackDown. He just was one of the releases not too long ago, gone from the company, but now she's back. Do you think he comes back to WWE, or do you think they hired her back? She already jobbed her first match. Okay, and I think it was to Liv Morgan. And did they release him because they hired her back and that was like a writ? Like, you know how petty they are. What do you think of this situation? And she was on SmackDown, by the way.
Well, guys, being that it was on such rugged terms of Twitch and Twitter and advertising and making your own money, and during the pandemic, and she didn't want to give up her way, it's her choice. Now, her being released, it was the WWE's choice. You say, you made a choice, we make a choice. As far as the husband goes, there was some backlash with the husband of him trying to establish himself and get his character over and coming up with ideas, and things didn't work out. The word difficult came up in some scenarios. But, everybody wants to make it. Everybody wants to do their best when they get to the WWE, which is cool. So they released the husband. They said, he's not producing. And the one thing is, can you draw me money? Obviously, they didn't see money in Aleister Black. But they saw money in Zelina Vega. So they brought her back. Now, being that she put over somebody on her first day.
Yeah.
If you come back and you go over, But if you come out and you're on the bottom and you don't know what they have for you to work towards, SummerSlam is coming up, WrestleMania is coming up, pay-per-views are coming up. She could be in line to be in some of the main events, which we don't know. But because you lose one match, they could turn you around and say, okay, from jobber status to superstar status in a week.
Yeah. They could make her a manager again, too, for all we know.
Yeah, I really didn't see her too much as a wrestler, but she was very famous as a manager.
Yeah.
Now, who would you put her with in the WWE at this time?
You know what I kind of thought? Right now, Dominic and Ray are tag team champions, but they're going to have father versus son at some point. Why not turn Dominic heel and have Zelina Vega be his mouthpiece? I'm just, throwing that out there as a quick, not even really thinking about it. What do you think?
But didn't they already do something with the Mysterio's daughter and a love scene and all this stuff?
Well, they just kind of dropped that with Buddy Murphy and all that. They just kind of dropped that, and then Ray and Dominic have really kind of always been together this whole time. I just used that as an example because they're on SmackDown, she's on SmackDown. That was just my quick thought.
If they're going to do something now, as far as the women's division is wrestling, what does the landscape look like as far as competition? Now, the champion is...
On SmackDown, it's Bianca Belair.
Right.
I think you still got Sasha Banks floating over there, Bayley, Carmella, so it's pretty thin. Liv Morgan. That's pretty much it. And there'll be a superstar shakeup at some point later this year.
Right.
So
I expect Zelina Vega... Did they have the draft yet?
No, that's probably October-ish maybe.
I could see her moving over to Raw. I don't see her managing the Mysterios because it's like they just finished doing a love scene. They just finished trying to do something with a female in there.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be leveled off. Are the Mysterios the tag team champions, by the way?
They are right now.
Okay. So hopefully with the live crowds coming, the people haven't seen this live, so maybe they will get the push through SummerSlam to go to some house shows, to get a good following, to get something good, drive their merchandise up, survey the land, and then we'll see what happens. Now, on SmackDown, also you have the Uso brothers, right? And they have been with Roman Reigns. Mm-hmm. And they haven't held the titles for quite some time. So it could be an Usos against the Mysterios. It could be the New Day making a return. As far as tag teams, those are the only three that come to mind. This is no disrespect to any tag teams out there. Please forgive me. I'm not trying to bury anybody. I'm just saying the most prominent ones that we're talking about right now are the Mysterios, the Usos, and New Day.
Yeah, and that's a great segue, Vito, because WWE, and you know how they are with their revisionist history. They announced New Day as their greatest tag team in the history. Of course, it's because they've had them win the title so many times. They've pretty much ran with the Freebird rules. The biggest the New Day ever got was when Kofi was singles as the WWE champion. What's your thought of the best tag team in the history of WWE? We talked about this over on No DQ. We were mentioning Demolition, the Hart Foundation, Edge, Christian, the Hardy Boys, the Dudleys. The tag division has sucked the past decade, and you're saying the best tag team of all time, and I know it's all kayfabe, is the New Day during a run of who did they go against? So what's your thoughts there? Obviously, it's not fans or other people outside of the WWE bubble saying, it's WWE telling us who it is. But what do you think? Or is it New Day in your opinion?
I'm gonna give you my analysis on this, guys, and
Yeah.
this is the whole truth here. Okay.
Okay.
Now, being that the business has changed and we have become digital, we have become social media, we have become merchandise, and we have become entertainment. The New Day has definitely covered those bases. Now,
I agree. That's true.
when you talk about a tag team to look at and guys walking in the building, the Legion of Doom, I wrestled against them. I wrestled against the Hart Foundation. I wrestled against Owen and Coco, right? I wrestled the Rockers. Everybody forgets the Rockers. Then they were a good tag team, right? You talk about, the Bushwhackers. I wrestled against the Bushwhackers. I wrestled against the Rock and Roll Express. I wrestled, I can't even remember this. Some great tag teams.
And because we're talking about the WWE bubble of tag teams, I'm going to throw out Money Incorporated in there. They had a great heel run with the belts. DiBiase and IRS.
Right. So, but you talk about legendary. Who sticks out? What about the Super Machine and Haku and Andre the Giant?
Andre, Colossal Connection.
Right, the Colossal Connection. Then you have Crush. He was part of Demolition.
Oh yeah, Demolition.
Right.
The British Bulldogs in the late
British
80s.
Bulldogs. How can you say that they weren't part of the greatest? So, if I had to pick one tag team, you had the Dudleys. You had
don't forget the New Age Outlaws and the Attitude Era.
Now, if you're talking New Age Outlaws, and then of course what we're all forgetting here is DX, Hunter and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
So where does the greatest tag team live? If you're talking about presence, walking to the ring, being ass kickers, Legion of Doom. I mean, two athletic, 280 plus pound guys that, power, could fly, could drop kick, and they just look like they will kick your ass. I mean, if you put the Legion of Doom against the New Day, it would be the men against the boys.
Yeah.
And there's no disrespect and this is no disrespect to the New Day.
Yeah.
But when you talk about, okay, could they wrestle against the Hart Foundation? Maybe Power against Power, Biggie against Jim Neidhart. Technical wrestling, Bret Hart definitely eats up Kofi and the other kid.
Xavier.
Xavier. So when you talk about Edge and Christian, could they match up good with the Hart Foundation? Could they wrestle with the Bulldogs? I mean, I think that would be good. Could the Dudleys wrestle with the Bulldogs? Or could the Dudleys wrestle with the Rockers? There's some pretty good tag teams out there. To say that they're number one, who was number two?
I do not know. I don't know if they had a whole list. I think it was
said number one, right?
Who the best was, and it was the New Day. Yeah.
Guys, if you're looking at the different time frames of eras from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s, right? There's a whole great stable of tag teams. Who is the best? Who is the most dominant? Who would you say had the most presence? Legion of Doom, to me, shoulder pad spikes coming in the arena. I mean, you knew who they were.
Yeah.
And one team we're forgetting is the Rock and Roll Express. And I wrestled against them too. That's another great tag team. All these tag teams I wrestled against. And you're talking about wow.
A lot of tag.
Wow.
Yeah. I put New Day top 10, but down past 5, in my opinion. It'd be hard to pick who the best is, but we named all of them. So
guys, there's no disrespect to any of these guys watching the show or the WWE or AEW guys watching. It's just an analysis. But I mean, if you're really a wrestling historian and a guy who just like, loves wrestling and knows the business, it's kind of hard to pick who's number one, who's number two, who's number three because of the different eras.
Yeah.
But when you talk about presence and look, Head and Shoulders, the Legion of Doom look like two ass kicks. That's taking nothing away from Bret Hart and Jim Anvil Neidhart, the Hart Foundation.
Hey, if you put WCW in that because WWE bought them, the Mamalukes.
The Mamalukes had a good following. They were entertainment. Imagine putting the Mamalukes and the New Day together to do a long stretch program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Entertaining with the vignettes we used to do. Who would know? You know what I mean? It would be awesome. But
too bad Enzo and Cass didn't get a nice long run. They never really treated them right as a tag team on the main roster.
That when the night they should have won the titles at the I think it was WrestleMania, and the Hardy Boys came out, and that was after the Monday Night Raw when they wrestled with Cena. I said, all right, they finally made it, and here it comes. And then they freaking shit on them, and they went downhill from there.
Yeah, but again, that's WWE, what they are telling us, right? Of course, because they're the ones that book it. But we think what we think. But that's all I have this week, Vito.
Didn't you have one more thing?
Well, we can talk about Nikki Bella apologized for saying bad things about China. On the Joan Rivers Fashion Police show like 8 years ago. Brie didn't say anything, but she snickered on that show. But Joan Rivers, over the top comedian. Nikki basically said, I don't know if she's a man or a woman. And at that time, China was still alive, but everybody knows China was battling a lot of demons. And of course, Nikki just recently came out and apologized for that. Sincere or not sincere? What's Vito's thought on this? And that'll be our main event this evening.
Guys, if you're going to apologize, you apologize on the spot a couple of days later. 8 years later, you're trying to, gain. I don't know what you're trying to gain or why would you apologize. Better off just to leave it alone. But another Nikki Bella thing, I just read about John Cena wanting to be a father and having a baby and wanting to do his thing with his new wife. So there have been things on the internet about Nikki Bella jumping off a cliff, Nikki Bella mentioning John Cena. Nikki Bella has a baby, she has a new man, and she still mentions her ex. And the Bella twins, the shows and all that have not been the same since John Cena left the scene.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm going to leave it at that. Guys, this is no disrespect to the Bella twins or anything else. They did accomplish a lot of great things. They did have a helping hand. They did have a good run. Sometimes just leave sleeping dogs lie. Don't mention things. If it did come up in conversation, they could say, well, I made a mistake in saying something, wasn't very politically correct. And to all the people who are China fans, I apologize.
And even if the Bellas were in character on that show, like sometimes wrestlers do as heels, China wasn't even working for WWE at the time. So, that was still definitely not the right thing to say. It's not like she was in on it, so.
When you don't work for the company and you're trying to live your life, there's no reason for anybody in the company to make fun of you outside the realm. Mm-hmm. You have 100 employees you could joust with. Why mock somebody who's not there?
Yep.
Poor taste.
Well said. Well, that concludes our episode. Any last final thoughts, or do you want me to bring it home?
No, just thank you everybody for supporting us. Thank you everybody for subscribing. Thank you for being, part of the family here. I greatly appreciate your support. And Dave, it's good to have another Getting Color in the box.
Yep.
You're looking good. You look happy. I'm very happy for you. Guys, take it home.
Now, you can follow Vito on Twitter at the Big Vito Brand. You can follow me on Twitter at NoDQ_Virtue. And be sure to check out the Patreon channel on patreon.com/the Big Vito Brand. And that's where Men of Business is. And by the way, I don't think I'll be on the next episode of Men of Business, but I will be back. And we'll have another Virtue and Vice soon, too. So, for Big Vito LaGrasso, I am Virtue. This has been Getting Color right here on the BigVitoBrand.com. See you next time.
Check out Big Vito and Virtue live with Getting Color every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, only on twitch.tv/BigVitoBrand.
Yeah. I feel like Big Vito. Yeah, I feel like Big Vito. Yeah, feel like Big Vito. Yeah. I said, I'm up next like I got the call from Vito. We not some average Joes, stay escaping from Leos. So call me Big Vito, I got a kick like a shotty. And like Ciroc, you're taking hard shots to the body. They had you in a dress, but you were still styling. And if they talk crap, hit them with the code of silence. Told these haters get off me, your style stays sloppy. Tricking out the rides, I got an iced out jalopy. Cut you off no matter how thin, like salami. So many shots headed towards me, it gotta be a timing. Speaking of mafia things, I call it Donnie. So you about to go to sleep, call me Hideo with Tommy. With the GTS, I bet you haven't seen me yet, you seeing stars. I smoked you like a Vito cigar. You're not messing with the squad, especially on the pod. It's no hold bars like this, no DQ.com.